Hello everyone, my name is Melagni, and today I'll be analyzing the poem Still Rise by Maya Angelou. This poem is about resilience, confidence, and overcoming oppressions. Through this presentation, I'll be explaining how Angelou uses literary devices like repetition, metaphor, and imaginary to show how people can rise above hardship and reclaim their power. But also this is about like when you have a mistake or you make something that you didn't like, when you overcome a challenge and you keep going. So I'm gonna be analyzing this poem today, and I'm gonna be presenting it to you guys. Before we begin to the class, I want everyone to think about this question. Why do people sometimes feel like threatened by confidence and resilience? In society, strong voices are often criticized or silenced, like especially voices that challenge unfair system, stereotypes, or things that don't match, like or world. Maya Angelou's poem Still Rise responds directly to that kind of oppression. Instead of allowing negative and discrimination to destroy her confidence, the speaker chooses to rise above it. The poem turns into strength and transforms suffering in empowerment. Lou was an African American poet, writer, and activist who would write about identity, resilience, and trauma, and mostly like empowerment. She experienced racism and hardships through her childhood, and many of her life experiences influenced by like her writing. She was also involved in the civil rights movement and working into important leaders fighting for equality. Even though she faced many struggles, Angelou used literature and poetry as a way to express herself and inspire others. Her writing often focuses on overcoming oppressions and finding strength through adversity. Because of her experiences, many of her poems, including Still I Rise, center around themes of self-growth, perseverance, and empowerment. Still I Rise was published in 1978 after the civil rights movement. Although important progress has been made by many Black Americans, especially Black women, still face discrimination, inequality, and racism. This historical context was important because the poem reflects the resilience against racism, sexism, and oppression. Angelou's challenges the people and the system that try to silence or degrade the Black voices. The poem was also reflecting ideas connected to empowerment and identity. Instead of accepting society's attempts to dismiss her value, the speaker proudly reclaims her confidence and power. This makes the poem not only personal but also political and inspirational. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may throw me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upsets you? Why are you beset with glum? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells, pumping in living room, just like moons and like the sun, with certain of tides, just like hopes spreading high, I'll still rise. Now I'll explain the poem using the Typicast method. For the title, I'll still rise immediately suggests overcoming challenges and continuing forward despite hardships that you may go through. In the paraphrase, where the speaker explains that people may try to insult, oppress, or humiliate her, but she will continue rising above their negatively. The cantation includes symbols and metaphors like dust, moons, and suns, which represent strength, certainty, and resilience. The tone of the poem is confident, defiant, and empowered because of the speaker refuses to feel ashamed or defeated. There is also an important shift of the poem. At first, the speaker discusses oppression and mistreatment, but as the poem continues, the voice becomes stronger, prouder, and more triumphant. When resilience the title, it becomes clear that a still rise symbolizes overcoming hardships and refusing to stay oppressed. The overall theme is that people should never allow discrimination or criticism or hardship to define their worth because of resilience leads to empowerment. This also can teach you how even though if you fall, you should still keep trying, it'll still raise. Theme and thesis. The main theme of the poem is resilience and self-worth. Angelus teaches readers that people should continue believing in themselves even when society tries to bring them down. Through repetition, metaphor, and imaginary, Angelus teaches readers that people should continue believing in themselves even when society tries to bring them down. How this poem uses repetition. One important literary device Angelus uses repetition is the phrase where I still rise. That is the title. It repeats through the poem as it becomes the central message of the work. And then the repetition reinforces the speaker's resilience because no matter how many times she's criticized or oppressed, she continues to rise above it. It repeated the phrase also creates a rhyme and emphasis, making the poem feel powerful and memorable. By repeating these words, Angelus reminds the audience that resilience is continuous and unstoppable. How these poems use metaphor is how Angelus also uses metaphor to strengthen the poem meaning. One example is a line where is like dust arise. By comparing herself to dust, the speaker suggests that resilience is unnatural and impossible to stop. Dust always rises again even after being pushed down or disturbed. This metaphor symbolizes the strength and perseverance because it shows that oppression cannot permanently destroy the speaker's confidence or identity. The comparison also makes the poem feel more vivid and symbolic. An important device in the poem is imagery. Angelo writes how you may throw me in the dirt, but I'll still rise. This creates a strong visual image of someone being stepped or pushed down. The harsh imagery helps the audience understand the cruelty and oppression the speaker is experiencing. However, the image also makes the speaker eventually rise feel even more powerful because she refuses to stay defeated. The imaginary allows readers to emotionally connect both the pain and the resilience presented in the poem. Tone and shifts. The tone in the poem is defiant, confident, and empowered. Instead of sounding weak or hopeless, if the speaker sounds proud and self-assured. Angelus eventually creates this tone to challenge oppression and celebrate self-worth. There is also a major shift through the poem. It begins with the speaker describing mistreatment and discrimination, but gradually shifts to confidence, pride, and empowerment. This shift is important because it reflects emotional growth and demonstrates how the speaker transforms pain to strength. The rhythm is writing in a free verse. The poem is still a strong rhythm and it has musical quality. Angelio uses repetition in tonal rhythm on a conversational launch to create a confidential and flowing tone. The structure feels like it's natural and almost sounds like a speech or a personal conversation, which makes the message feel more direct and emotional. The free verse structures also reflects freedom and independence, matching the speaker's refusal to be controlled by others. So now we have an activity. For this activity, I want everyone to reflect on resilience and confidence. Write 2 lines about the challenge you overcame using repetition like Maya Angelou does in the poem. For example, you could repeat a phrase that represents strength or perseverance. This activity helps to connect the poem to real life and allows people to understand how repetition can strengthen emotionally meaning in a poetry, something like that. What you guys do that? A fun fact about this poem is that it reminds me of I'm Still Standing, like the song. And now to conclude, I Still Rise is a powerful poem about resilience, confidence, and empowerment. Through repetition, metaphor, and imagery, Angelus shows how people can overcome oppression and reclaim their self-worth. This poem reminds readers that hardship is a criticism do not define a person's value instead of resilience, and how confidence allows people to rise above negative and continue moving forward. Even today, the poem remains inspiring because the message is about strength and is empowering the universal. A fact about this author is that she's one of the most banned authors in the whole United States. And even though she had like all of these obstacles, she was still trying, and she was an activist during all the time that she was alive. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I will be responding them. And here's my phone number in my email if you guys want to reach out and ask me anything. Yeah, bye.